Okay, I want you to imagine something. You're locked up in a Roman prison. Your future is, well, it's not looking great. What kind of letter do you think you'd write? Probably not one that would go down in history as one of the most joy-filled documents ever created. And yet, that is exactly what the Apostle Paul did. So, how on earth did he pull that off? Let's get into it.
This is the real puzzle here, right? How does that much joy come out of a place of suffering and confinement? Well, according to scholar Dr. Daniel Darko, the answer is this incredible mix of genuine, heartfelt emotion and some seriously clever strategy. So, where do we even begin to unpack this? The first thing you have to get is that this letter, the one we call Philippians, it wasn't written to a bunch of strangers. Not at all. It is built on a foundation of a deep personal friendship. Paul isn't writing this as some authority figure, he's writing to his friends.
And when you actually read the letter, you can feel these emotional currents just pulsing through it. It's all about that deep friendship, this just constant sense of joy, even with everything going on. It's about a call to be radically humble, and it's always pointing to Christ as the ultimate model for life. This is not some dry, distant lecture. It's all heart.
And man, you can feel that connection in the words he chooses. I hold you in my heart. He is literally building his entire message on this bedrock of shared grace, shared experience, and genuine affection. This isn't just some nice, fluffy sentiment. It's the foundation for everything he's about to say.
So we've got this really powerful emotional core. And this is where it gets super interesting. Underneath all that raw emotion is an incredibly smart, sophisticated intellectual strategy. You see, Paul is using the ancient art of persuasion, what they called rhetoric.
Now, I know, the word rhetoric can kind of have a negative vibe today, right? But you have to remember, in the ancient world, this was a highly respected, absolutely essential skill. It was basically the science of how to communicate effectively. And every single educated person, from philosophers to politicians, studied it. And back in the Greco-Roman world, if you wanted to persuade somebody, you basically had three main tools in your toolkit. Each one had a different job, a different goal, and used totally different techniques. And you can bet that Paul, as a highly educated guy, knew them like the back of his hand.
First up, you've got judicial rhetoric. Its entire purpose is to argue about something that happened in the past, to prove that something was either right or wrong. The easiest way to picture this, think of a lawyer making their case to a jury in a courtroom. That's judicial rhetoric.
Then you have deliberate rhetoric. This one is all about the future. It's about convincing an audience to do something, to take a specific action. A political campaign ad trying to get you to vote for someone, that is pure deliberate rhetoric. It's all about, here's what we should do next.
And finally, there's epidictic rhetoric. This one focuses on values. It uses praise to celebrate and lift up certain virtues, and on the flip side, blame to condemn certain vices. Honestly, a heartfelt wedding toast praising a friend's character is a perfect modern example. It's all about confirming what we value together.
Okay, so that's the theory, but how does Paul actually use this stuff? Well, let's look at the very first lines of his letter, because you can see this strategy spring into action right away.
So this is how the letter kicks off. I know, it seems like a pretty standard greeting, right? But trust me, every single word here is a strategic choice. And I want you to pay really close attention to the word Paul picks to describe himself.
And here it is, the key choice. In so many of his other letters, he opens with Paul, an apostle, a title that's all about spiritual authority. But not here, not to his friends in Philippi. Here he chooses the word servant. It's a title of humility, and it immediately puts him right on the same level as them.
And then he just doubles down on this emotional connection a few sentences later. He doesn't just say, I miss you guys. No, he says he yearns for them with this deep, profound affection. He even calls on God as his witness. This is incredibly powerful, emotional stuff.
And believe me, this isn't random. This is a textbook move in ancient rhetoric. It's called the exordium. It's the opening hook, and it is specifically designed to build rapport, to create an emotional bond with your audience right from the get-go. Paul is masterfully using a classic rhetorical tool to express a feeling that is 100% genuine.
So let's put all the pieces together. What are we really seeing here? We're seeing this amazing blend of authentic, deeply felt emotion and really sophisticated, smart technique. And that is the secret to how this whole letter works.
So the key isn't just about what Paul was feeling, it's about his incredible ability to communicate those feelings in a way that truly connects.
The reason this letter is so powerful, why it has lasted for centuries, is because it is both deeply authentic and brilliantly constructed.
Now, you might be thinking this is all just about feelings and emotions, but check out this number, 10. What in the world could 10 represent?
Well, Paul uses the Greek word phroneo, which means to think, to focus your mind, or to process something mentally, 10 times. And as Dr. Darko points out, that is almost as many times as he uses it in all of his other letters combined. So this letter of the heart, it's also a powerful call to change your mind. He's persuading them to adopt a whole new way of thinking.
And that really just leaves us with this final thought. Paul's letter from a prison cell has endured because it wasn't just about sharing information, it was about sharing affection and challenging people to think in a new way. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own lives, what if true influence isn't just about having the right words, but about masterfully connecting what we mean with how we make other people feel?